Assalamu alaikum dear students. Today we are going to discuss how to avoid shifts in sentence construction. So we'll start with shifty tenses. Many students believe that tense changes should always be avoided. However, sometimes a shift in tense is necessary to indicate a change in the time frame of the action. It is the unnecessary shifts in tense that sometimes cause awkwardness and should be avoided. So, first of all, we'll see what is tense. Tense is the grammatical word to describe the ending of a verb. English usually marks the sense of time with an adverb. For example, it is happening today or it happened yesterday. When proofreading for unnecessary tenses shifts, there are several questions to keep in mind. When do I want to set this action? And has the time period changed? For example, I may be writing an essay about my experiences on a recent trip to Virginia and want to say that I saw the Mason-Dixon line for the first time. I have several options. I can write my paper in the past tense, which is the style most people are used to reading in novels or short stories. So dear students, this is the thing that first of all you should know what is tense. Before discussing shifty tenses, we should know that what is tense. With this sense, if you are clear, so it will be easy for you for further learning. So in English grammar, tense shift refers to the change from one verb tense to another, usually from past to present or vice versa, within a sentence or paragraph. A writer may temporarily shift from past tense to present tense in order to enhance the vividness of a narrative account. In perspective grammar, writers are cautioned to avoid unnecessary shifts in tense. Unmotivated shifts between present and past may obscure meaning and confuse readers. So, gliding from one tense to another. It is possible to glide from one tense to another in the course of one sentence, but the key to doing it is always to be in control, to know what are you doing, what effect you are hoping to achieve. So this is very important, that gliding from one tense to another, so you should know that what are you going to do and what changing will be there. So this is very compulsory point, that you should know that what are you going to do and what will be the perspective after the changing the sentence you will face, and what sort of changing will be there, and will the structure of sentence will be there same or it will be changed. These are the things that we'll discuss further. So now there are some examples in the literary review. Francis King comments with admiration on how Taylor in his novel kept frequently shifts gear from past tense to present to tartan a scene. So, and in essay Glitches, John Gregory Dune writes, off the road there was what appeared to be a reviewing stand, and I sat there for a few moments, taking in the museum and the cold blue Sunday sky, talking stock, what to do next. I'd really had to cancel dinner tonight. I am breathing normally now. It's okay. Okay, I wouldn't even tell my wife nor time, especially not time. I feel fit as a fiddle now. So he was not though, but that's another story told by his wife. In the year of magical thinking, just notice the tense shift. So these are some examples. The effect of tense shift in A Tale of Two Cities. So, A Tale of Two Cities, as you all know, by Charles Dickens, it's very important for your learning. So, A Tale of Two Cities has a tense shift at a great moment of the story. After the trial and after Sidney Carton has taken the place of Charles Darnay in jail, the drug Darnay and his family are fleeing in the stagecoach from Paris. Suddenly, we find that the story is in the present tense. This adds vividness and excitement, and here marks a peak which encodes part of the notional structure denominant of the story. Legitimate tense shifts. Sometimes writers shift from past to present tense when telling a story to add vividness to the events. This legitimate tense shift is a literary device called the historical present. It is familiar to readers of epic poetry, but people also use it when relating everyday. I was walking down Delancey Street the other day when a guy comes up to me and asks me for the time. So, what is an example of unmotivated shift in tense in writing? One example is starting a story in past tense and suddenly shifting into present tense. Last week I was walking along a street when this man walks up to me and says. So now you can see that last week I was walking along a street. I was walking. I am nahi hai yahan pe. I was walking. So this is the thing that he is going to tell you, that I was walking a street when this man walks up to me. So now the tense is being changed here. Now it's not being told that it's walking, it's walks up to me and says. We do this in speech all the time, but in formal writing it's considered to be an error. So this is very a key point for your learning, that we do in speech all the time, but in formal writing it's considered to be an error. So be careful for being changed. Tense places the action of the verb in time. Today I go, yesterday I went, tomorrow I will go. Different verbs in a sentence or paragraph may logically use different tenses to reflect actions to different times. We will play tennis before we eat breakfast, but after we have had our coffee. The tense you select to describe most of the actions in your paper is called the governing tense. Once you establish it, do not use another tense with a good reason. Dear students, in the first statement, tense places the action of the verb in time. Obviously, the time is very key point in this lecture for learning. Today I go, yesterday I went, tomorrow I will go. So basically this is the thing that I want to discuss with you, that tense places the action of verb in time. So time is very key point, very compulsory item. So today I go, yesterday I went, tomorrow I'll go. So with the passage of time the tense will be changed. The last one, the tense you select to describe most of the actions in your paper is called the governing tense. Once you establish it, do not use another tense without a good reason. That you should have a good reason for using another tense. The literary present tense is used to describe literature or art. If you use it, do so it consistently. So the literary present tense is used to describe literature or art. It is common practice to analyze literary works in present tense. Thus you would write Pearl is a difficult child rather than Pearl was a difficult child. In an analysis of Hawthorne's the Scarlet Letter, if you are quoting a critic who has used a past tense verb in a particular sentence, you may change the tense of the critic's verb by typing the tense you wish to use in square brackets. This bracketed change of the tense avoids an awkward verb tense shift in your text. As a general rule of thumb, however, avoid changing the tense of verb in the text of a literary work you are analyzing. So now we'll see shift in verb tense. Shifts in verb tense are created when a sentence moves between past, present or future tense. Obviously, tense moves around these things that you have to deal with them. So this is especially common in narrative essays, but can also occur in academic essay which should use present tense. Sometimes the verb in a sentence may refer to action that is occurring at different times, which would require different tenses, otherwise maintain consistent tense unless the intended meaning requires change. So we'll see the example. During the soccer game, Brett's dad stood up and screams at the coach. So in this example, the first verb stood is past tense. So now you have to look at the example very carefully, that stood is past tense, the following verb screams is present tense. If he stood up past tense, he must scream in the same tense, which would be screamed. So now look at again the example. During the soccer game, Brett's dad stood up and screams at the coach. So as earlier I have discussed that stood is here past tense, screams is present tense. If he stood up, past tense is there, he must scream in the same tense. You should not change the tense, which would be screamed, not screams. So another example is here. The teacher explains that the paper were due Friday, but the students complained about the due date. The teacher explains in present tense, so the students should complain in present tense. So but the students complained. Here we have used the second tense, second form of the tense, second form of the verb. It is indicating that we are using past tense, but in the earlier we have said that the teacher explains. So for this we have to use the same tense in earlier and on the last. Example is there. During the baseball game, the sky darkened, the wind blew up, and a rumbling boom announces the impending storm. So the time frame is introduced as past tense. Darkened and blew up are both past, so announces should be the past as well. So now we'll use that, announced the impending storm. Look at the example. During the baseball game, the sky darkened. Obviously that's the second form of the verb. The wind blew up, that's two second form, and a rumbling boom announces. So we'll use here that announced the impending storm. So the things will be the same in a same tense. So here is a hint. Don't be fooled by the introductory words during the game, even though during means an action is continuous in general. It doesn't mean that the sentence action is necessarily continuous. So now we'll see that avoiding incorrect shifts in verb tense. You will use many different tenses within your writing, and shifts between tenses are fine as long as they accurately represent the action described by the passage. Where learners sometimes encounter difficulties is when they mix verb tenses within a sentence or description. So for example, the tide is high and it flooded the road. So is indicates simple present tense. The tide is indicates simple present tense. Flooded indicates simple past tense. Choose the correct tense and use that tense throughout the sentence. The tide was high and it flooded the road. So now in the earlier example we have said that the tide is high and it flooded the road. So now we'll use the same tense. Obviously the tide was high and it flooded the road. That's the basic thing that we are discussing in this lecture, that how to avoid, you have to shifting in tenses. Obviously this is the thing that we'll see further, that in which sense and in which aspect you have to avoid for these terms. So now, why it is important to avoid unnecessary shifts in verb tense? The verb tense expresses a sense of time in a sentence, paragraph, paper or longer work. Generally, the writer should establish the time perspective. Obviously, time perspective means past, present or future. Obviously, work is being done or it is going to be done or it is in the present tense in the opening sentence, and maintain that tense consistently throughout his or her work. Obviously, it is being said earlier that you have to be focused on your consistently throughout his or her own work. Although there are occasions when a shift in tense is appropriate, unnecessary and inconsistent shifts, especially within a sentence, are distracting to the reader and can cause a break in overall coherence. So how can you correct unnecessary shift in verb tense? So now we are dealing with these things. In a passage where an unnecessary shift has occurred, go through and highlight each of the verb and verb phrases. So these are the points that how you have to correct unnecessary shift in verb tense. In a passage where an unnecessary shift has occurred, go through and highlight each of the verb and verb phrases. This is the number 1 point. Number 2 is change the tense of the inconsistent verbs or verb phrases to align them with the primary tense that has already been established. Reread the passage aloud and listen for consistency in verb tense. Refer to a list of irregular verbs in a dictionary or style guide as an aid for choosing the proper form of the verb. So these are the 4 points that how you can deal with the unnecessary shifts in verb tense. So now, inconsistent verb tense. There are 2 types of verb tenses. So number 1 is inconsistent verb tense. So inconsistent verb tense advocates of through hand washing believes this practice will help prevent illness. There have been those who challenge this view. So second is consistent verb tense advocates of through hand washing believe this practice help prevent illness. There are those who challenge this view. So shifts in sentence construction refer to an improper change in structure somewhere in a sentence which results in inconsistency. Some shifts are deliberated, but unintentional shifts can cause confusion. It's sometimes difficult to identify these shifts. The most common shifts relate to shifts in verb tense, shifts in person or number, and shifts in voice. So now we'll see shifts in person or number. Is the subject of sentence the person speaking first person, the person spoken to second person, or the person spoken about third person? Shifts in person mean mixing these person within a sentence. Students often use second person. Obviously, second person is you in academic writing when first or third person is preferred. So obviously we all know first person is I and we, second person is you and your, third person is he, she, it, one, they. So here are some examples. If one lifts weights consistently, you will gain muscle mass and reduce body fat. So one may get chicken pox if you do not get vaccinated. This is one of the most common tense shifts in academic papers. One is third person and you is second person. If one lifts weights consistently. So now one is third person, obviously, and in other part of the tense he is also discussing with the third person, that you will you is second person, he is discussing with the second person, you will gain muscle mass and reduce body fat. One may get chicken pox if you do not get vaccinated. The same things are in above mentioned examples. So now if someone must dissect the frog, they should do it while closely supervised. In the above example, someone is third person singular, they is third person plural. To repair, change either. If someone must dissect the frog, he or she should do it while closely supervised. So now these are the example that if someone must in the first example, if someone must dissect the frog, they should do it while closely supervised. In the second example, if someone must dissect the frog, he or she, obviously this is the thing that we are going to change that here. In the first example we are using they, but in the second example we are using he or she. So now the third thing is, if the class must dissect the frog, they should do it while closely supervised. So now in the first and second example we were using if someone, but in the third sentence we are using if the class. The thing is very clear here. So another example, clerks get paid less than assistants, though a clerk does the same type of work. Now this is an error in number. Clerks in plural and a clerk in singular. Choose one or the other. A clerk gets paid less than an assistant, though a clerk does the same type of work. So now clerks get paid less than assistants, though they do the same type of work. So now look at the first example, clerks get paid less than assistants. So now we are using the plural, same with the clerks and then with the assistants. So now in the second example we are saying a clerk gets paid less than an assistant. Now we are using singular, but in the third sentence clerks get paid less than assistant. So these are the things that, as earlier it is discussed, that this is an error in number. Clerks is plural and a clerk is singular, so choose one or the other. This is the thing. So now we'll discuss shift in voice. Shifts in voice refer to mixing active with passive voice. A sentence beginning in active voice should remain in active voice. If the subject acts on something, it's active. If the subject is acted upon, it's passive, obviously. However, sometimes a shift in voice is justified, so be careful it's communicated clearly. So this is the thing, that if you are dealing with the active and passive voice, so you should be very careful as in the beginning of sentence, and the same thing will be there with the your, when you are going to close a sentence or you have to done with the your sentence, the same thing will be there. And on the last, sometime a shift in voice is justified, so be careful in it's communicated clearly. Obviously that's the thing, that if you are communicating clearly, that's the thing, that how you are dealing with the shifts. So now examples are here. The visiting team won the tournament and a trophy was awarded to them. So in the example, team won is active voice, trophy was awarded is passive. To correct the turn passive second part of the sentence to active. So now look at the example. The visiting team won the tournament and they were awarded a trophy. So now you have to feel the difference between these two sentences. The visiting team won the tournament and a trophy was awarded to them in the first sentence, but in the second sentence the visiting team won the tournament and they were awarded a trophy. So now look at example again. In the first sentence a trophy was awarded to them, but in the second sentence they were awarded a trophy. So this is the thing that you have to be very careful about these shifts. So the thieves approached the woman and she was asked for her purse. So this example can be corrected in the same way as the previous. The thieves approached the woman and they asked her for her purse, obviously. So now in the first and second example you can check the error there. The thieves approached the woman and she was asked for her purse. In the second sentence the thieves approached the woman and they asked her for her purse. So now as you can see, it's not always easy to locate shift in tense, person or voice. We often know something is not quite right, but you have a hard time figuring out what exactly it is. So this is the thing that dealing with the shifts you should be very careful that what are you going to do with these shifts. So this is the thing that we have today discussed in our lecture, that how to deal with the shifts, what are the shifts. So shifts are very commonly basically writers should keep the elements in a sentence consistent, avoiding any unnecessary change in tense. Obviously voice, mood, person, number and discourse, such unnecessary changing or shifts may make reading difficult and obscure the sentence meaning for the reader. So this is the thing that you should be very careful as a being the student. So obviously shift can be problematic for the reader as well as for the writer too. So it's very compulsory and important for the changing in active and passive. As earlier we have discussed here that shift in voice refer to mixing active with passive voice. A sentence beginning in active voice should remain in active voice. This is the thing that if you are going to deal with active voice you should be there in active voice. So a sentence beginning in active voice should remain in active voice if the subject acts on something. So sometimes it is necessary to change the tense. For example, if the time frame of the action changes from the past to present, the tense should change to indicate this. Although it was only a 4-hour ride from so it's another example, but now I am discussing that shifts in voice, obviously active voice and passive voice, but as I have discussed that you should be very careful in voice as well as for your verbs, as well as for your number, as far as for your name. So these are the things that you should be very careful in these things, that how you have to deal with this. So if the subject acts on the something, it's active. If the subject is acted upon, obviously this is the thing that I am going to repeat again. So you should be very careful with the dealing of these things, that how to deal with active voices and how to deal with passive voices. So if the subject is acted upon, it's passive. However, sometimes shift in voice is justified through, so be careful it is communicated clearly. Obviously when you are going to communicate, you should be very careful that how the things are you are going to communicate with the person, with the man, with your before a person you are going to discuss. So we have also discussed with the verb tenses and how you have to avoid the for verb tenses. So the verb tenses express a sense of time in a sentence, paragraph, paper, or longer work. Generally, the writer should establish the time perspective, as earlier I have said, that past, present, or future in the opening and opening sentence, and obviously have to maintain that tense consistently throughout his or although there are occasions when a shift in tense is appropriate, obviously unnecessary and inconsistent shifts, especially within a sentence, are distracting to the reader and can cause a break overall in a coherence. Obviously, we have also discussed with the inconsistent verb tense and consistent verb tense. So I'll again repeat these two things with you. So now look at here. Advocates of through hand washing believes this practice will. So now we are using here will help prevent illness. So in the second form, advocates of through hand washing believes this practice helps. So this is the difference that in the inconsistent verb and consistent verb tense. So with this we'll conclude our today's lecture. So I think so you all will prepare it for your midterm exam. So dear students, that was all from my side for today's lecture. Inshallah, see you soon. So stay at home and enjoy your good health. So inshallah, see you soon. Allah Hafiz.